pure than peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. I don't think there are many who would characterize the sort of things heard from Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or Rachel Maddow or Keith Olbermann or any other number of cable news hosts and talk radio hosts as peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy. And so despite the fact that people on both sides of the partisan screamathon that so infects our country claim that they are devout Christians, I am left to conclude that their behavior, and sometimes my own, is fundamentally at odds with the basic tenets of the faith we claim to hold. James, in his letter, puts it more bluntly. He says such behavior is devilish, unspiritual, earthly, sinful, and its existence demands that people cleanse their hands and purify their hearts. You know, I suppose it was inevitable over time that a culture that long thought of itself as Christian would eventually allow the notion that we need to be different and distinct from the world to fade away. I mean, many of us grew up in an age when we thought that being a good citizen and being a Christian were pretty much one and the same. When you think that all the people around you are Christians as well, there's not a whole lot of reason to worry about how well my behavior bears witness to the way of Jesus Christ. We do, in our faith, we do connect the faith to morality, but it's often to a very generic morality, not one really from the Bible. For example, I don't know that loving your enemy has ever been real big in our culture. Offering your right cheek when someone has smacked you on the left one, we're not really for that either. Never mind what Jesus said. And all this means that as American Christians, we have been conditioned over the years and the centuries to pretty much simply go along with the conventions and the norms of our society. And so as discourse in our culture has grown less and less civil, well, we in the church have simply followed the culture's lead. We not only engage ourselves in the partisan rancor, the yelling, the screaming, the nastiness, the win-at-all-cost political processes of the day, but worse, we imported those patterns straight into the church. Fights in congregations and denominations have intractable sides where neither side trusts the other, where they take everything the other side says at its worst possible meaning, and both sides plot strategies for winning drawn from the very worst of our culture. And in the meantime, the culture has decided it no longer needs to prop up the church, to close the stores or theaters on Sunday, to help teach young children the Christian faith. The culture has decided it will no longer define itself as Christian. And yet, the only thing we as Christians have that set ourselves apart, that make us distinct, is showing up here on Sunday. Other than that, we are virtually indistinguishable from the culture around us. And we wonder why people don't flock to our congregation. When I think about it from this point of view, there's a sense in which the decline of the American church is something we deserve. And the desire to turn back the clock by putting prayer or Bible or whatever back into the public schools may just be a terribly misguided longing for a time when the church for God is calling to be distinct. It's called to live by the ways of the kingdom, by the ways of the cross, rather than by the ways of the world. When the culture set the church adrift, leaving us to make it all on our own, they may have done us an enormous favor. We've been given the opportunity by our culture to reclaim our core identity as the people of God who live in a manner that reveals the ways of Jesus to the world. We have been given this opportunity to claim our identity as the people of another way. There is another way, a way not driven by selfishness, a way not driven by making sure I get what's mine, a way not driven by worries and anxieties that if I don't look out for number one, no one else will. There is a way that is characterized by peace and mercy, by gentleness, and by God's abiding presence in our midst. But it is not a way that can be learned from the world. It is the way of Christ, the way of the cross, or as James would say, the wisdom that comes from above. That is the wonderful good news that James gives us in the words we heard from him this morning. James does not simply chastise us for failing to be good enough, but he reminds us that this wisdom from above is ours when we give ourselves to God. James is not simply in this letter saying, be better, try harder. Instead, he is saying that if we will entrust our lives to God, to turn to God and embrace God, God will embrace us. And we will discover, as the Spirit guides us in the way of Christ, the true, abundant, fulfilling life we were each created to lead. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace. This is the life that God longs to give us. If only we will give ourselves to God. Thanks be to God.